This is Antony Carpen here in Cambridge, and I'm here with Amelia Womack, Deputy Leader of the Green Party, who I interviewed at just before the general election here in Cambridge. So welcome back,
Thank
Amelia.
you.
Good to see you again. And fascinating talk that we just had on all things Greens and trade unions.
Yeah.
But the first question I wanted to ask you about was really your observation on the general election, in particular for the Greens, where I believe you stood a record number of candidates.
We stood, not only did we stand a record number of candidates, but we were the party that stood the most women. So we aimed for 50% and we nearly got 40%, and that was still the highest of any political party. Obviously with the result, we got Caroline Lucas re-elected. Most people had said that if she hadn't got re-elected, it would have been a sad day for politics, not just the Green Party, because she does so much incredible work in Parliament that makes sure that the most vulnerable in our society are being represented. We had 1.1 million votes and one MP, and it really highlights a lot of issues in our electoral system, especially when the SNP didn't get, and in terms of percentage, didn't get that much more than us, but they had 56 MPs. And I think there's a real role of electoral reform moving forward from here, because so many people have been left unrepresented. When only 24% of people voted for the Conservative government, it means that the majority of people don't have a voice in what's meant to be our democratic institution. And going forward, there are only two parties who don't believe in electoral reform, and that's Labour and the Conservatives. And I'm hoping that with Jeremy elected as the leader of the Labour Party, hopefully that will change in the future.
Just coming back to that general election result and looking closer to home here in Cambridge, Rupert Reid, your transport spokesman, increased the Green Party vote from just under 4,000 to just over 4,000 between 2010 and 2015. But there are also a number of very significant rises in the Green Party vote across the country, which, from what I recall, puts what was the third highest vote for the Greens in 2010 down to the 20s. So where are the new areas of growth that have happened for the Greens between 2010 and 2015?
And I think a key one is looking at Bristol West. Now, we had the biggest surge in vote from 5% all the way past, I think it was closer to 25% in this election, and that was the biggest surge that had ever happened in a political election until the SNP results started to come in. So it was a very short victory, but one that we're quite proud of. But I think what we're seeing is there's a surge in a number of areas. Now, as the vote's gone up in Camberwell and Peckham, where I stood, the vote trebled. And I think that as more and more people hear what Green Party policies are and how relevant they are to normal people's lives, and the more people want to vote Green. And I think in terms of key areas, we can't looking forward to the next 5 years, we won't be able to see where that trend will be then. And what is clear is we've got the Welsh Assemblies coming up, the London Assemblies coming up, where we've got proportional elections and an opportunity to get more Greens elected into the London Assembly. And looking at statistics, we should hopefully get 3 or 4 London Assembly members of the London Assembly instead of the 2 that we have now, and an opportunity to get our very first Greens into the Welsh Assembly. So those are key areas of growth.
You're standing, I believe, for the Welsh Assembly, are you not?
Yes, that's correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that's also where you're from, just like the dragon over there.
I didn't realise that Puffles was Welsh.
Yeah, Puffles is from a village called Tregaron.
Oh, really?
In South West Wales.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's where Puffles is made, so Puffles is very much a Welsh dragon. I mean, with that in mind, I mean, you also stood against a very high-profile candidate in 2015, Harriet Harman.
Yeah.
What to anyone who's perhaps never stood for election before, what were, so I say, 1 or 2 things that you learnt from standing for election that perhaps you weren't aware of before, that you're in particular going to take with you into your Welsh Assembly campaign?
I think, well, in terms of if you've never run before, I think one of the key things is that whoever you're standing against is only human. And although you're talking to these high-profile people of the Labour Party or whatever party it might be, that they're still only human and are just people at the end of the day. So there's not these huge things to be afraid of or worried about. But I think one of the key things going forward, I was very disappointed after the election when a lot of the announcements while she was leader were being made that completely contradicted what she said on hustings and panels. And I was really shocked by some of those, and I was really disappointed that had happened. But I think one of the key things that I've learned
just specifically on that point, does that also show the importance of having those sorts of hustings videoed so that when it comes to later political actions after the election, constituents can hold elected members to account for what they said before? In particular, for example, when we look at the child tax credits issue that is currently dogging the current government.
I definitely agree that we need to have better ways to actually hold our elected representatives to account. If you bought a toaster and you got it home and it didn't toast bread, you can send it back into trade description. But if you elect a representative and they get into Parliament and they don't do what they said, then they're completely at liberty to do that. And I think there's a huge gap in terms of making sure that people are being held to account in that way. And
just coming back to the learning point, I very rudely interrupted you there. Please continue.
But I think that one of the other things that I learned is just making sure that not being worried to have conviction in your arguments, and so making sure your ideas are being heard, because so often you're speaking, even though the temperature of the hustings can be that people are thinking one way, just by challenging that and having good arguments as to why you should be challenging that can really change people's ideas and perceptions about the issues that you're talking about. So basically, don't pander to an audience. Have faith in your arguments.
Now, last night I watched online some of the online hustings that the Young Greens had for some of the committee positions. One of the things the Greens have been very strong on, certainly over the past year, has been the recruitment of young members, in particular women, as you mentioned earlier. With the Green surge and since the conference that you had, what have been if anything, the biggest challenges of dealing with so many new people coming into your party and the rapid rise and increased, in particular, media scrutiny that you've had to deal with?
I can't think of any major problems as such. I think there's it's been exciting to see lots of changes happening in the party and the growth of local parties, opportunities and capabilities. But one of the things that I think has made a real difference is that it has brought more diversity into the party, and that's on gender, that's on race, that's on all kinds of different issues that the surge has brought more, especially with younger people. It's brought a lot more diversity, and that's I think that's a really important point.
Okay. And you had what was your biggest party conference in your party's history in Bournemouth a few weeks ago. What was that like? And for those people who don't know why political parties have annual conferences, what is the importance of having those conferences?
So ours is quite unique in many ways, and I've only ever been a member of the Green Party, so I can't really draw comparisons. And so we have fringes, discussions and debates. So it's a real opportunity to go away and learn, or to come to conference and learn about something new. I think one of not this conference, but the conference before, there was a panel that we had on trans issues, and I think that was a really important panel to have those discussions and hear the stories that different people had to share. And that it's also an opportunity for our members to come and discuss and debate policy and vote on that. So one of the policies that was discussed this time was around if you're homeless, then you've got to go and get support from a mental health facility before you're given a home, whereas obviously you'd probably have better mental health if you had somewhere to live. Yeah. And actually challenging a lot of these problems in our policies, well, in the government's policies, and finding ways within our policies to try and right those wrongs.
And then finally, you've got your Young Greens conference coming up very, very shortly. What's that going to be like?
Well, I think it will be really interesting because although we're having conference, then there have been lots of training events and meetings, and it's a real opportunity for our Young Greens to come together and again talk about policy, but have an opportunity with the rise of social media. And as you said, the Young Greens especially are very good at using social media, that kind of building those friendships in real life and not just online. So
Absolutely.
I think there's a strong cohesive group that's obviously open to everybody as well, and I think that will be one of the important parts, is actually meeting people.
You've put a number of very short soundbite interview clips which are going up weekly, something that it feels like the other political parties are taking some time to perhaps adapt to. What's been the response to the videos that you're putting up, both in terms of the style but also the content? What sort of things are you talking about in the video?
So I use it as an update in terms of especially what I'm doing on a weekly basis, because I feel that adds to the transparency to the party, and also means that the key messages that we have on those issues are actually being communicated. Because there are lots of, when you look at things such as what's happening with Europe, for example, I feel like as issues around Greece were happening, that there wasn't necessarily the diversity of debates and arguments. So it's an opportunity to actually add in our arguments, even if we don't have the media coverage that maybe the other parties do. And I think the response has been good. I think that hopefully people enjoy them, but I think that in terms of politics, actually making sure that we're communicating in a number of different ways. It's not just print press isn't what it used to be, and we need to be thinking about new ways to make sure that we're communicating with our members or communicating with voters or campaigners, because I think that the Green Party has a strong, clear message, and we need to be getting that across as often as possible.
And I guess I'd say a final question, because you're now travelling the country pretty much full time now for the party these days. What are the common themes, issues, experiences that you find when you go from place to place all over the country? Because it gives you quite a unique perspective on what the situation is like, both politically and socially across the country, that actually few people get an insight to.
Definitely. I think so at the moment there was a motion at conference that went through saying that deputy leaders should be paid because the role's been voluntary, and actually at the moment I'm still in a kind of waiting for all of that to come through. So I'm still working full time and doing the deputy leader work on top of that, but travelling as often as I can. And the perspective is fascinating because, as you said, you get that diversity of location, diversity of stories, and sometimes perceived reality and actual reality can be very different as well. But one of the things that I take most from it is that I'm elected deputy leader, and I don't actually have an elected role, but to me I feel like our members are my constituents. So being able to go out and listen to people's concerns, or listen to people's achievements, or actually being able to have that personal contact with people, I think is really important. And I think that that's the only way that we can be making sure that our members are represented at every level of the party, by making sure that we're going out and listening to what they're doing.
Brilliant. Amelia Womack, thank you very much.
Thank you.